What if the single biggest factor making your diabetes harder to control isn't what you're eating, how much you're exercising, or even your medication dosage, but something as fundamental as the timing and temperature of the water you drink throughout the day? And I know you're probably skeptical because you've spent years, maybe decades, trying everything from different medications that came with side effects to restrictive diets that left you feeling deprived, expensive glucose monitors and supplements that promised miracles but delivered nothing. And here I am telling you that water, simple H2O, could be the missing piece. But stay with me, because what I'm about to share has helped many people see meaningful drops in fasting blood glucose within just a few weeks. And my name is Dr. Michael Kent, and today I'm going to show you how strategic hydration can significantly improve the way your cells respond to insulin, even if you've had diabetes for decades. And these aren't just statistics from research papers, but real people who walk into my appointments exhausted, confused, and frankly defeated. People in their mid-60s through their late 70s who do everything by the book, checking their glucose 4 times daily, memorizing the glycemic index, measuring their carbohydrates to the gram, walking after dinner, taking their metformin with clockwork precision, and still their morning numbers are all over the place. And I see the exhaustion in their eyes, not just physical exhaustion, though that's certainly there, but a deeper weariness that comes from fighting a battle where the rules keep changing and victory feels impossible. These are people who've given up pasta, bread, and desserts they once loved, who've spent thousands on continuous glucose monitors, special diabetic foods, and supplements, who've attended every diabetes education class their insurance would cover, and despite all of it, their A1C keeps climbing. But here's what changed my entire approach to treating diabetes. I began noticing that a large portion of adults over 65 are chronically dehydrated, and that dehydration creates a cascade of metabolic problems that make blood sugar control nearly impossible regardless of medication. And here's the fascinating part. Most research focuses on what people eat, while almost nobody studies when and how people drink. And before we continue, I'm curious where in the world you're watching this from right now, so drop your location in the comments, because diabetes affects people everywhere, and I love seeing this community come together from across the globe. But now I need to be crystal clear about something. This isn't about abandoning your current treatment because your medications are important and your doctor's plan matters. What I'm sharing is how to optimize the environment inside your body so that your medications can work the way they were designed to work. So let me explain what's happening metabolically that nobody tells you about. Because when you hit your 60s, your body undergoes 4 critical changes that directly impact blood sugar control. First, your cellular water channels, which are proteins called aquaporins, become less responsive, so even when you drink water, your cells struggle to actually pull that water inside where it's needed. Second, your kidneys naturally lose approximately 30% of their filtering capacity by age 70, which means they're less effective at removing excess glucose from your bloodstream, and they're also less efficient at concentrating your urine, causing you to lose more water than necessary. Third, and this one surprises most people, your sense of thirst becomes dramatically impaired, because studies show that by age 65, your thirst response can be delayed by up to 90 minutes after your body needs water, so you could be medically dehydrated without feeling even slightly thirsty. And fourth, many common diabetes medications, especially diuretics that people take for blood pressure, actively pull water from your body, making chronic dehydration worse. And here's what most doctors don't explain. When your cells are dehydrated, even by just 3%, your cell membranes become rigid. So think of a dried-out sponge versus a moist sponge, because a dried sponge can't absorb anything while a moist sponge pulls in liquid instantly. And your cell membranes work the same way. When they're properly hydrated, insulin receptors function normally, But when they're dehydrated, those receptors essentially shut down. So your pancreas could be producing insulin, or you could be injecting insulin. But if your cell membranes are rigid from dehydration, that insulin can't do its job, and the result is your glucose stays trapped in your bloodstream instead of entering your cells. So your blood sugar numbers climb, not because you ate wrong or forgot your medication, but because your cells physically cannot accept the glucose trying to enter. And let me share Robert's story, because Robert is 69, and his diabetes had been stable for 8 years. Then suddenly, without changing anything, his morning numbers went haywire. He'd been waking up around 110 to 120, but now he's consistently hitting 170, 185, sometimes breaking 200, and his daughter brings him in because she's worried. And when I review his glucose log with them, the pattern is mystifying, with Tuesday morning at 192, Wednesday 178, Thursday 201, Friday 186. Same dinner every night with chicken breast, vegetables, and a small portion of brown rice. Same bedtime routine, same medication schedule, but wildly inconsistent morning readings. And picture his daughter leaning forward saying he's doing everything perfectly. Dr. Kent, I help him prep his meals, we weigh everything, something's clearly wrong. So I walk through his typical day hour by hour, asking what time he wakes up, what he eats, when he takes medications. And on paper, everything looks textbook perfect. Then I shift to a different angle, asking Robert to walk me through his fluid intake on a typical day. And this is where the pattern emerges, because he says, well, I have my coffee when I wake up, maybe a glass of water with my pills at breakfast, another glass at dinner, sometimes iced tea in the afternoon. And when I ask specifically about plain water, he admits maybe 2 glasses total, saying, I'm never really thirsty, so I don't think about it. And here's the issue. At 185 pounds, Robert needs approximately 90 ounces of water daily, but he's consuming maybe 16 ounces, so he's chronically dehydrated. But his impaired thirst mechanism gives him no warning signal, and coffee is a diuretic, so for every 8 ounces of coffee, you only net about 3 ounces of actual hydration, because the rest is pulled from your body's existing water stores. So we implement what I call the WTR protocol, which I'll explain fully in a moment. Essentially, we restructure when, how, and what temperature water he consumes, and 10 days later, Robert reaches out, and his tone is completely different, lighter, almost excited, saying, Dr. Kent, my morning reading was 118 today. Yesterday was 124, 3 days ago 132. I haven't seen these numbers in 6 months, and 4 weeks later the transformation is visible with better energy, better color, and his glucose log shows an average fasting reading of 127 for 2 straight weeks, down from 185. Same food, same medications. The only variable that changed was strategic hydration. But here's what he tells me that really drives it home. I feel different, Dr. Kent. It's hard to put into words. Less foggy, more present. Like there was this constant mental haze I'd gotten so used to, and now it's just cleared. And that mental clarity is what happens when your brain, which is 75% water, finally gets properly hydrated, after months or years of running depleted. And before I teach you the exact protocol that works in cases like Robert's, let me explain the 3 critical mistakes nearly everyone makes with hydration after age 60, because you're probably making at least 2 of these right now. Mistake number 1 is counting coffee, tea, and other beverages as water, because here's the truth. Coffee and tea are mild diuretics, so for every cup you drink, you lose approximately 60% of that volume through increased urination, which means if you drink 8 ounces of coffee, you net about 3 ounces of actual hydration, while the rest is pulled from your body's existing water stores. And juice, even unsweetened juice, causes rapid blood sugar spikes that trigger your kidneys to dump both glucose and water, while diet sodas contain artificial sweeteners that actually worsen insulin resistance. So the only beverage that truly hydrates is plain water. and everything else is supplementary at best or counterproductive at worst. Think of it this way. If you have a checking account that needs $1,000 to avoid overdraft fees, would you deposit $1,000 knowing the bank immediately withdraws $600 because you'd still be short? And that's what coffee and tea do to your hydration status. Mistake number 2 is drinking cold water straight from the refrigerator, especially first thing in the morning. And this might surprise you because cold water feels refreshing. But here's what happens physiologically when ice-cold water hits your stomach. Especially when your core body temperature is still low from sleep, your blood vessels immediately constrict because this is your body trying to maintain core temperature. And when blood vessels constrict, circulation decreases dramatically. And where does glucose need to go? Into your cells through your bloodstream. So constricted blood vessels mean insulin and glucose can't reach their destinations efficiently. Additionally, cold water in an empty stomach shocks your digestive system, which triggers a stress response that releases cortisol. And what does cortisol do? It signals your liver to dump stored glucose into your bloodstream, so you've just created a morning blood sugar spike before you've even eaten breakfast. Whereas room temperature water, or better yet, warm water, keeps your blood vessels relaxed and open, so circulation remains optimal, your stress response stays calm, and your morning blood sugar stays stable. Mistake number 3 is drinking large amounts only when you finally notice you're thirsty, because remember, your thirst mechanism is impaired, so by the time you feel thirsty at age 60, 5 or older, you're already significantly dehydrated. But then what do most people do? They drink 16 or 20 ounces all at once, thinking they're fixing the problem. But your intestines can only absorb approximately 8 ounces of water every 20 minutes, so anything beyond that amount simply passes through to your bladder and comes right back out, which means you haven't hydrated your cells. You've just taken an expensive trip to the bathroom. It's like trying to water a garden with a fire hose because the ground can't absorb it fast enough, so it runs off and the roots stay dry even though you've used a lot of water. And proper hydration requires small, frequent amounts throughout the day. Think of it as maintaining a constant, gentle rain instead of one massive downpour. Now let me teach you the exact protocol I use with my patients, called the WTR protocol, where W stands for water itself, pure and strategic. T stands for timing, which is the specific schedule that optimizes glucose control. And R stands for regulation, which is the way your body learns to predict and respond. So let's break down each component, starting with water quality, which matters more than most people realize, because tap water is fine if your municipality has good filtration, but I recommend filtered water if possible, not because of dramatic toxins, but because minerals matter. And here's my specific recommendation. Use filtered water and add back trace minerals, because you can buy liquid trace mineral drops at any health food store, usually for about $10, and they last months. And why minerals? Because your cells don't just need H2O. They need electrolytes to create the electrical gradients that allow glucose to enter. So think of minerals as the keys that unlock your cell doors, while water without minerals is like showing up at a locked door with no key. And specifically, magnesium is crucial for insulin function because nearly 70% of people over 60 are clinically deficient. Potassium helps regulate glucose levels, and sodium in appropriate amounts is essential for cellular hydration. So my recommendation is add 5 drops of trace mineral solution to every 32 ounces of water you drink. That's it. Simple, inexpensive, dramatically effective. And now for the timing windows. Window number 1 is immediately upon waking, before anything else. The moment your feet hit the floor, before coffee, before bathroom, before checking your phone. Drink 12 ounces of room temperature water with minerals. Room temperature, not cold, with minerals, not plain. And this does something remarkable, because after 7 to 8 hours without fluid, your blood has literally thickened overnight, so your first drink of the day rehydrates your blood, allowing it to flow more easily and deliver insulin more effectively. Additionally, drinking water first thing signals your hypothalamus to wake up your metabolism gently, which prevents the cortisol spike that causes dawn phenomenon, that frustrating morning blood sugar rise that seems to come from nowhere. And in cases like Robert's, this single step often drops morning glucose by 30 to 35 points on average, 35 points from 12 ounces of water at the right time. Window number 2 is 30 minutes before each meal, and this timing is critical. Drink 8 ounces exactly 30 minutes before you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not 15 minutes, not right before eating. 30 minutes. And why? Because this gives your stomach time to prepare. It activates digestive enzymes. It begins to dilute stomach acid to the optimal concentration for breaking down food and, most importantly, for blood sugar. It slows gastric emptying. So when food moves more slowly from your stomach to your small intestine, carbohydrates are absorbed more gradually, which creates a gentle rise in blood sugar instead of a sharp spike, so your available insulin can actually keep up with incoming glucose. And studies show this single habit can reduce post-meal glucose spikes by up to 35%, which is comparable to some medications achieved simply by drinking water at the right time. Window number 3 is mid-morning and mid-afternoon between meals, because this is when most people's blood sugar does unpredictable things. You're not eating, so you assume your glucose should be stable, but then you check and it's climbed 20 or 30 points for no apparent reason. And what's actually happening is dehydration, because as your blood loses water through normal metabolic processes, it becomes more concentrated. And more concentrated blood means higher glucose readings, even though you haven't added any glucose to your system. So drink 6 to 8 ounces at 10:30 a.m. and again at 3:30 p.m. Small amounts, strategic timing. This keeps your blood volume consistent and your glucose reading stable. Window number 4 is 2 hours after your last meal of the day, and this one surprises people because most have heard not to drink water right before bed because of nighttime bathroom trips. And that's true. Drinking at 10 p.m. and going to bed at 10:30 p.m. means you'll wake up at 1 a.m. needing the bathroom, but drinking at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., a full 2 to 3 hours before bed, allows your body to process and distribute that water, so you'll likely urinate once before bed, then sleep through the night. And this evening hydration does something critical for fasting blood sugar, because it prevents your blood from thickening too much overnight, which means you wake up with better circulation and more stable morning readings. And here's what most people don't understand. Your body adapts to patterns. So if you've been chronically dehydrated for months or years, your body has adjusted to function in drought mode, where your kidneys concentrate your urine more, your brain suppresses thirst signals, and your cells accept less fluid. So when you suddenly start drinking more water, your body initially responds by sending you to the bathroom constantly. And this is normal and temporary, because you're not actually hydrating poorly. Your body is simply recalibrating, and most people quit after 3 days because the bathroom trips are annoying. But here's what happens if you stick with it. Within 10 to 14 days, your kidneys adjust. Your bladder learns to hold more comfortably. Your cells begin accepting more water, and the bathroom urgency decreases dramatically, while true cellular hydration improves. This is the regulation phase, where you're teaching your body to trust that water is consistently available, so it doesn't need to stay in crisis mode. Additionally, drinking water on a precise schedule trains your circadian rhythm, so your body begins anticipating these hydration windows and preps your metabolism accordingly, which creates remarkably stable blood sugar patterns over time. So what actually happens when you implement the WTR protocol? Let me give you realistic expectations week by week. Week 1, you'll be in the bathroom more than usual, and I'm not going to lie to you about this. It's annoying, but it's temporary, because your body is flushing out years of accumulated metabolic waste. So push through this week, and blood sugar-wise, you might see small improvements, maybe 5 to 10 points lower on average. Nothing dramatic yet, Some people feel slightly more energetic, but most don't notice much beyond bathroom trips. Week 2. Bathroom frequency starts normalizing, and most patients tell me by day 10 or 11 they're not constantly looking for restrooms anymore. Blood sugar readings begin showing more consistency, not necessarily lower every time, but less random variation, and the spread between your highest and lowest reading each day starts narrowing. Week 3 is where people typically have their breakthrough moment because morning fasting glucose begins dropping noticeably. 15, 20, sometimes 25 points lower than your previous average. Post-meal spikes become more predictable and less dramatic. And most importantly, you start feeling different with mental clarity improving. That afternoon energy crash lessening, and some patients tell me their joint pain decreases because inflammation drops when you're properly hydrated. Week 4 and beyond, blood sugar control continues improving, and many patients see their A1C drop by 0.5 to 0.8 over 3 months. Some, under their doctor's supervision, can reduce medication dosages, and typical feedback at the 12-week mark. Sounds like I haven't had a single reading over 160 in 3 weeks, when before this protocol, I was over 180 almost daily, and my doctor cut my evening metformin dose in half. And let me share Linda's story because Linda is 73 and had been managing type 2 diabetes. For 16 years, when she first comes in, she's visibly defeated. Picture her sitting across from me saying, "Dr. Kent, I need you to be completely honest with me. My endocrinologist says I need to start insulin. My A1C is 8.9 up from 7.8 just 6 months ago. I'm already on 3 oral medications. I honestly feel like I'm failing." And she pauses, and you can see tears forming. I'm terrified of needles. I know that probably sounds ridiculous at my age, but the thought of injecting myself multiple times every day, I don't know if I can handle that. And her total daily water intake is approximately 20 ounces, if that. Her urine is dark amber. Her skin has that papery texture of chronic dehydration, and she reports constant fatigue. When I explain the WTR protocol, her response is skeptical, saying, "Water, really? That seems far too simple to make any meaningful difference," but she's willing to try anything to avoid insulin injections. So we start immediately. The first week is challenging, and she messages me on day 4 saying, "I feel like I'm living in my bathroom," but I encourage her to push through. By week 2, things shift with bathroom trips finally decreasing, and she says, "I actually slept through the entire night last night for the first time in months, and my morning blood sugar was 148 yesterday. It hasn't been below 175 in half a year." Week 3, she comes in for follow-up, and the change is visible with better skin color, brighter eyes, easier movement, and she says, "Look at this." Showing her glucose log, my average fasting reading this week was 139. My post-meal numbers rarely exceed 165. Now, when before the protocol I'd regularly hit 220, 230 after eating, we recheck her A1C at 3 months, and it's dropped from 8.9 to 7.7. Still not perfect, but dramatic improvement. And her endocrinologist actually calls me saying, "I don't know what you did, but keep doing it. We're holding off on insulin. If her next A1C continues this trend, we might even reduce one of her oral medications." But here's what Linda tells me that really captures the essence. "I realized I'd spent 16 years meticulously managing my diet, my exercise, my medications, everything except the most fundamental thing my body needs, which is water. I was running on empty and expecting my engine to perform perfectly, and 6 months later her A1C is 7.2. The insulin conversation is permanently off the table. She avoided the needles she'd been dreading with water, timing, and consistency, because sometimes the most basic needs are the ones that get missed while attention stays on complex interventions. Now, let me be absolutely clear about important precautions, because this protocol is not a cure for diabetes. It will not replace your medications. Never stop taking prescribed medications without explicit approval from your doctor. What this protocol does is optimize your cellular environment so medications work more effectively and your body's natural insulin functions better. And some important considerations include if you have congestive heart failure or any condition where fluid retention is a concern, talk to your cardiologist before increasing water intake, because in some cardiac conditions, drinking too much water can worsen fluid retention. If you have kidney disease, especially if you're on dialysis or have less than 30% kidney function, you need individualized guidance, so do not increase water intake without your nephrologist's approval. If you're on diuretic medications for blood pressure or heart conditions, your doctor may need to adjust dosages as you improve hydration, because proper hydration can naturally lower blood pressure, which is good, but might make your current diuretic dose too strong. Watch for signs of overhydration, though this is rare. If you're urinating completely clear urine more than 10 times daily, or if you develop headaches or nausea, you might be drinking too much, so pull back slightly. And please share your experience in the comments. Tell me where you're starting from. Let me know after week 1, week 2, week 3. What you're noticing, because your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear to give this a try. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, type "I finished the video" in the comments below, because it tells me this information is reaching people who really need it, and it helps YouTube share this with more people struggling with blood sugar management. Then tell me, are you ready to try the WTR protocol? What concerns do you have about implementing it? I read every comment and I'll respond to your questions. If this video was valuable, please share it with someone managing diabetes, a parent, friend, or spouse who's struggling despite doing everything right, because this simple information could genuinely change their life. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell, because I post new videos every week on managing diabetes, optimizing metabolic health, and living well after 60. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your health seriously enough to watch a 16-minute video about something as simple as drinking water. Remember, sometimes the most powerful interventions aren't the most complicated ones. Sometimes it's getting the basics right that creates transformation. Take care of yourself. This is Dr. Michael Kent, and I'll see you in the next video.